One woman, one mission, shining light on corruption. This is UncoverDC with your host, investigative reporter, Tracy Beanz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be with you today on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you guys for being here. Show today brought to you by Ageless Multi-Collagen. Did you guys know that after the age of 20, your body produces about 10% less collagen each passing decade? The visible result ends up being the appearance of wrinkles, flaky skin, hair loss, and brittle nails as we age. But Ageless Multi-Collagen gives you 5 types of collagen you need from 4 premium sources in one complete protein mix that actually tastes like nothing, which is fabulous because you can even put it in your coffee. You'll enjoy powerful support for your body with results you can see and feel in a few short weeks. Get Ageless Multi-Collagen for 51% off plus free shipping by going to healthwithbeanz.com, or you can click the link in the video description box if you're watching us on YouTube below. That's healthwithbeanz.com. And thank you so much. So today I've been so excited to get started. Juan, the producer, I hope you're ready because I'm going to have you firing away on clips here today. Hoping that I can get through all of this today. We'll hope we can. This is how we're going to do it. Yesterday, Sally Yates sat in front of Lindsey Graham's Committee on the Judiciary in the Senate, and it was frustrating for nearly everyone who watched it. Myself in particular, I could barely contain myself throughout. So I set out yesterday to do a breakdown of this testimony, point out all the lies, the mystique, the misspeaks, the false nonsense that was spewed, and also show you documented sort of evidence of why the stuff that she was saying isn't true, and then talk about why it is that these senators, outside of 3 of them that did a fairly okay job, Hawley, Cruz, and Graham, why they weren't better. Why they weren't better prepared. Why didn't they understand what they were hearing? Why didn't they know to counter? Especially because when you're putting things on the record like this, it's important to have truth. And that was not happening yesterday. Nobody pushed back on the falsity. And we're going to go through some of those today. Quite a few of them, actually. The first one came right in the beginning in Lindsey Graham's opening statement. It will be clip 6. Lindsey Graham is talking about the Russians and their impact on the 2016 election. And I don't know how many of you out there in at least Radio Land are real familiar with this story, but I'm going to do my best to bring you up to speed today. Let's play clip 6.
The 2016 election, and I want everyone to know, Ms. Yates included, that the Russians did interfere in our election. It was the Russians who hacked into the DNC and stole the Clinton emails, and the Russians were up to no good. That is not the bone of contention with me.
Well, that's good to know, Lindsey Graham, because fact does not support what you just said. CrowdStrike, the private cybersecurity firm that first accused Russia of hacking Democratic Party emails and served as a critical source for U.S. intelligence officials in the years-long Trump-Russia probe, actually acknowledged to Congress more than 2 years ago that it had literally no concrete evidence that Russian hackers stole emails from the DNC server. CrowdStrike President Sean Henry's admission under oath in that recently declassified testimony, the testimonies that all of the transcripts that Adam Schiff was trying to hide that were recently declassified. It was before the House Intelligence Committee, and he said that there was no tangible that they could prove that Russia exfiltrated those emails. So the allegation that Russia stole Democratic Party emails from Clinton, Podesta, and others and then passed them to WikiLeaks was what triggered the, quote, FBI's probe into now debunked claims of a conspiracy theory or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia to steal the election. The CrowdStrike admissions were actually released 2 months after the Justice Department retreated from its other central claim that Russia meddled in the 2016 election when it dropped charges against Russian troll farms. It had been saying, we're trying to get Trump elected. So we're going to get more into the Russian troll farms. We're going to get more into all this as we go on. But Lindsey Graham was obfuscating yesterday completely. And, nobody wants to acknowledge this. Just yesterday, Fox News, in a separate lawsuit, won a decision by the judge. The decision sent a request overseas to have Julian Assange testify in the case. The Rich family, the mother and father of Seth Rich, are suing Fox News for the story and reporting that they put out several years ago in regards to their son and the fact that he was one of the conduits to WikiLeaks for these emails from the DNC. And they're asking to ask Julian Assange where he got the emails from, if Seth Rich had anything to do with them. And they're basically trying to show that their reporting was not bunk and it wasn't slander or libel, that there was actual real legitimacy behind it. That's going to be an interesting one. It's kind of the whole house of cards, in my opinion. We'll see what happens there. So Lindsey Graham, again, he brings up the subsource for the Steele dossier because the subsource, this is going to be clip 7, Juan, just to get you ready. The subsource was what Christopher Steele based his entire dossier on for the most part. And that subsource, the primary subsource as they call it, was brought in by the FBI on January 24th. Remember that date, January 24th, to talk to the FBI. So let's play quickly clip 7.
About using a document that came from a Russian subsource to get a warrant against an American citizen repeatedly that was full of garbage. Does that bother you?
Well, I'm not sure that
Does it bother you that the FISA court rebuked the Department of Justice and the FBI regarding the Carter Page warrant application?
Senator, I believe that the Department of Justice and the FBI have a duty of candor with the FISA court.
Do you believe?
So it's now been uncovered that the subsource for the dossier was actually working closely for and with Brookings, a leftist think tank connected to many of the players in the impeachment scandal, including a name that you guys will all remember, Fiona Hill. Fiona Hill was one of the key witnesses in the impeachment and actually vouched for Christopher Steele during that whole fiasco. This quote here is from an article at, I believe, Real Clear Politics. It says, quote, "At the time, Danchenko worked as a research analyst for the Brookings Institution, where he became a protege of Hill. He collaborated with her on at least 2 Russian policy papers during his 5-year stint at the think tank, and worked with another Brookings scholar on a project to uncover alleged plagiarism in Russian President Vladimir Putin's doctoral dissertation, something Danchenko and his lawyer boasted about during their meeting with FBI agents." Like Hill, the other scholar, Clifford Gaddy, was a Russia hawk. He and Hill authored a book about Putin that was endorsed by Vice President Joe Biden. He was complimented by Hill several times, especially on his LinkedIn page. Now, why is this important? There were 2 raids of 2 properties connected to Privat Bank. Privat Bank is the bank basically that grabbed that missing money in the whole Ukraine scandal. And the entire Ukraine situation, everything that went on, from the FBI looking into where this money went, to Joe Biden's involvement with Burisma, to firing the prosecutor in Ukraine when they got close to figuring out what was going on with Burisma, to the State Department, it loops back through Brookings and Atlantic Council and all of these think tanks and NGOs. And it all seems to all play into one another. All of this stuff gets woven together all the time. And so Steele's primary subsource has connections to Fiona Hill, the impeachment witness. Are you surprised out there? Are you surprised? Okay. Now we're going to move. This is going to be clip 8, Juan, just so you're ready. This is about Sally Yates is asked if General Flynn's behavior amounted to a violation of the Logan Act. And throughout the testimony yesterday, she pushes back about the Logan Act being important at all. And I'm here to tell you that she's lying. She's lying. And we're going to go over several different examples of why. Let's listen to clip 9. Oh, no, 8, sorry.
Discussion he and I had.
No, I got you.
That's all.
So here's the question. Did General Kislak's behavior amount to a violation of the Logan Act, in your opinion?
It certainly could have been a technical violation, but that was not the focus of the FBI or us. That we were really focused on a counterintelligence investigation.
Well, do you realize on
See, that's not true. And we're going to get ready for clip 9 in a second. Yates was aware that there was an ongoing criminal investigation into General Flynn. And, you know, Lindsey Graham misspoke when he said that. But Yates was aware there was a criminal investigation into General Flynn at this time that was opened up. And there was consternation between the two of them. I said that word completely wrong. But there was arguments between them all about this. Yates goes to Don McGahn to tell him, you know, right after the ambush interview, she goes to Don McGahn to tell him about what's going on with General Flynn, and we're going to get into the lies and all the, you know, he was messing with U.S. sanctions and all kinds of stuff in a second. But there was fighting between James Comey and the DOJ because James Comey was waffling between whether or not this was counterintelligence or criminal, back and forth. And Sally Yates was getting angry because she wanted to know what was going on, and James Comey wasn't telling her. She was aware there was a criminal investigation, so this whole counterintelligence nonsense is nonsense. She tries to focus the entire hearing on the fact that this is a counterintelligence investigation. Bunk. There were warrants out for General Flynn. There is a FOIA lawsuit ongoing right now for the uncovering of those warrants. That's going to open up a whole entire bag of worms because I don't think there was any predication to get those warrants. We're going to go through a timeline real quick, but let's quickly play clip 9.
Issue.
And when you heard about the interview, you got upset, didn't you?
I was upset that Director Comey didn't coordinate that with us and acted unilaterally. Yes, I was.
Okay. Did Comey go rogue?
But you could use that term, yes.
Finally. So wait a minute. Thank you. So here's the point I'm trying to make. Did I violate the Logan Act when I called the Israelis up and suggested that you need to come out against the Iranian nuclear deal because I think it's bad for the United States and Israel, even though that was the policy of the Obama administration?
If you were doing that as a representative of the government, while the Obama administration was
I'm not
place.
part of the Obama administration.
No, I understand that, but you know, I think the Logan Act is a reflection of our country's long-standing
My question
policy.
is, would a United States senator, in your view, violate the Logan Act if they reached out to a foreign government to express a contrary view of foreign policy?
If you were negotiating on behalf of the U.S. government, you may. But Senator, I have to tell you, the whole prism here, that this is all about the Logan Act is just not how
Why
we
did somebody
were.
bring it up? Why did they mention the Logan Act if it's not about the Logan Act?
Because as I was trying to say just a minute ago, that's a reflection of our long-standing policy in the United States that you have one president at a time. And this wasn't just...
Is it the long-standing policy of the United States that an incoming administration can't talk to foreign leaders about changing policy?
Okay, so I stopped it there. On January, we're going to go through a timeline real quick, and then I'm going to show you what the Obama State Department had to say about this. And I'm skipping around a little now, so Juan's going to get a little bit futz. Let me just find real quick. Bear with me here. Let's take a look at, we're going to hold up on clip. Bear with me. Dead air. I can't find it. Never mind on that. That's okay. It's down at the bottom. Okay, timeline. Ready? January 4th, 2017. Should be a day everyone remembers. On this day, Paige and Strzok are texting back and forth, and Strzok all of a sudden starts frantically asking if they had closed the Flynn investigation yet. To which Page replies to him that it's still open. He says, "Oh, thank goodness, our incompetence has saved us this time. The 7th floor wants us to keep it open." They had decided under the counterintelligence investigation entitled Crossfire Hurricane, sub-investigation entitled Crossfire Razor for General Flynn, that there was literally there was nothing actionable on General Flynn at all in terms of colluding with Russia or anything else. They searched and searched and searched and decided that they could no longer investigate him under this counterintelligence investigation. They decide to close it. For some reason, they don't do it. Peter Strzok frantically asks them, asks Page, is it still open? She says yes. They say the 7th floor would like to keep this open, need to decide to do with him with regard to a redacted portion, which I think may say the Logan Act. And then Peter Strzok sends Lisa Page a paper that same day from the Congressional Research Office entitled, quote, "Conducting Foreign Relations Without Authority, the Logan Act." Now, there is no way you can tell me that Sally Yates, the PRISM, is not the Logan Act. They were looking for an excuse to keep open on General Flynn. The Logan Act was something that they pulled right out of their rear to try and do it. The next day is the meeting where Peter Strzok takes notes about Biden talking about the Logan Act. Sally Yates says that Comey discussed the Logan Act. And not only that, we go one step further. In a declassified or now declassified scope memo, Rod Rosenstein instructed Robert Mueller to investigate Flynn and the Logan Act. Does he say Logan Act? No, he doesn't say the word Logan Act, but he says to investigate him in terms of his calls with the former ambassador. It is in a document. It says allegations that Michael Flynn committed a crime or crimes by engaging in conversations with Russian government officials during the period of the Trump transition. And again, this is a scope memo in May. So don't, Sally Yates, tell the American people that the prism with which you were investigating all of this was not the Logan Act. It is documentably false. It's just false. And something interesting that she says here is that the agents suggest that the case be closed. They suggested to close the counterintelligence investigation into General Flynn before they knew about the calls that he had had with Ambassador Kislyak. I have been trying for the past 24 hours to find a timeline of when the FBI had the tech cuts, which are the little summaries about his call with Kislyak, and I can't find that information yet. But as soon as I do, you can guarantee I will come back with that. We're going to keep moving here. Feinstein gets to talk. This is clip 1, Juan. Feinstein gets to talk, asking if Yates agrees with the Flynn dismissal of the lawsuit. Let's listen to clip 1.
Had attempted to put a thumb on the scale on our election, who rather than when he spoke with the Russian ambassador telling him, stay out of our elections, keep your nose and your paws out of it, even if they want to reset going forward, but to rebuke him and to let him know that we will not tolerate their country trying to intervene and pick our president. Not only did he not do that, he was making nice with him. And then on top of that,
well,
you had the
could I stop you for a moment? The question was, because the lies were not material to a legitimate investigation?
No, I think, Senator, they were absolutely material to a legitimate investigation.
All right.
And this investigation was... I'm sorry.
Then I guess I'm not understanding what you're saying. Could you try once again?
Sure, I'll try it again. I was trying to lay out for you, Senator, what the situation was at the time that General Flynn was interviewed. And that was we had General Flynn engaging in discussions with the Russian ambassador that were essentially neutering the American sanctions. And that is a very curious thing to be doing, particularly when the Russians had been acting to benefit President Trump.
Flynn did not neuter anything. That is only the first time out of like 20 times that she talks about General Flynn interfering, neutering, undercutting sanctions that the Obama administration placed on Russia before he left office. General Flynn never spoke about sanctions with Russia. General Flynn, in the transcripts that we now have released and we can read for ourselves, only talked about the expulsion of Russian diplomats from the United States. The Obama administration kicked Russian diplomats out of the United States. General Flynn spoke with Ambassador Kislyak and asked not that he not reciprocate, that he reciprocate without going overboard. Basically saying, don't go overboard and make this a tit for tat and let us keep having to go back and forth to one up each other. I know you guys have to respond, but don't respond in greater fashion than what we have done. The entire set of transcripts in this completely lay to rest the fact that General Flynn was talking about sanctions, which is the cornerstone of their entire nonsense narrative against him throughout this entire thing. She says a whole bunch of stuff here about that. He was making nice with Kislyak. What are diplomats supposed to do when they start to try and develop relationships with foreign governments with which they need to do foreign policy and make it so that the world doesn't explode? You know, Sally Yates is basically here saying that that diplomacy is, that there cannot be policy differences, that you cannot waver from a policy position that a former administration has had in regards to another country. It's insanity. And it's based on lies. And they allowed Sally Yates to say this about General Flynn and the sanctions over and over and over again. And nobody has pushed back. Nobody in the Senate pushed back yesterday. No one said a word. And it's really infuriating. So we're going to take a quick break right now, Juan, if that's okay. I don't know if we can push the break because it's 1:28 and I can't start something new. Does that work for you?
I'm going to give it a try.
See, he's so good. What would I do without him?
You would be in Fox News right now.
They wouldn't let me on Fox.
Of course they would. It's their laws.
Aw, thanks, Juan.
Let me see if I can get it to work.
Pushing buttons.
This is UncoverDC with Tracy Beanz on WSMN, AM 1590 and FM 95.3.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
You're listening to UncoverDC with Tracy Beanz.
That music makes me want to like jump up and down. I like it. It's good music. So here we are. We're back. Thank you guys for hanging out, giving me a breath for a minute or so there. We're going to keep going here. I'm really hoping I get through this. If I don't, I'm going to do another one later because I have too much to talk about with this. Too many things. We're going to talk about another issue that came up in testimony here with Papadopoulos, George Papadopoulos, the infamous George Papadopoulos, who talked to Alexander Downer about supposedly having thousands, the Russians having emails on, that will hurt Clinton and help Trump and blah, blah, blah. We're going to listen to clip 4, and I'm going to explain to you why she's lying again. Here we go.
It's going to take a little bit to load up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Dejana Figueroa.
Oh, that's not it.
Nope.
5 will be next, by the way.
Okay.
Ooh.
Shortly after WikiLeaks released nearly 20,000 emails stolen by Russia from DNC computers, wasn't there some obligation for the FBI to investigate, to learn what Russia was doing and who was involved?
Absolutely, Senator. It was really startling information. The FBI, as part of the intel community, was already trying really hard to be able to get to the bottom of Russian interference and to address issues like attribution on the DNC hack. And then when they learned from the friendly foreign government that someone that affiliated with the Russians had actually approached a foreign policy advisor of the Trump campaign and had told him that the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails that could be released anonymously, and wanted to know if the campaign was interested in this. When they found out this information had come in May, and then it actually happened. The emails were then dumped by WikiLeaks in July. This was something that I think everyone would recognize that you have to get to the bottom of.
The issue here is that Downer didn't tell the FBI about that conversation until July. So I'm not sure if Sally Yates is saying here that they had that information in May, because if she is, it completely upsets the entire timeline that they've been cramming down our throats this entire time, that the conversation with Alexander Downer, and it's funny because she says friendly foreign government. It's Australia, dude. We know. Just say it. Everybody knows it's Australia. She says it like she's writing the IG report. Anyway, so that comes in. If that comes in May, then the entire timeline is wrong. So that's a little bit of a gem right there, depending. She also talks about how there was it was very irregular to dismiss the case against General Flynn. This is clip 5. Let's listen quick.
It is highly irregular, Senator. I was a prosecutor at the Department of Justice for almost 30 years, and I've certainly never seen a pleading like this. And as I think I've already discussed some with Senator Graham and with you, from my perspective, there's no issue with respect to the materiality here, nor to the government's ability to be able to prove falsity. Not only because you could look at the transcripts and see the black and white there in terms of it being false, but in fact, General Flynn had twice pled guilty and sworn that he was guilty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator.
We are going to go to 12 real quick, and I'm going to explain the materiality thing in further detail. I got Juan working today.
The agents even took that a step further. They not only asked General Flynn open-ended questions to give him an opportunity to tell them the truth about what had happened in his conversations with the Russian ambassador. When he, for example, at the beginning, gave nothing but innocuous points that had come up and nothing at all about sanctions or about the United Nations vote. They then tried to help trigger his memory for him and reminded him of specific things, sometimes even using the exact language he had used in the calls. You know, if you're trying to set somebody up to lie, which I don't really know how you set somebody up to lie, you don't generally try to help them out like that.
There was no reason for them to be there in the first place. They had the transcripts of the call. They just admitted, you know, I've had this little debate back and forth with someone who's much more experienced than I am on these things, but I've read these pleadings and I've read the government's argument. And one of the things that the government says in dismissing the case against General Flynn is that not only is there now a ridiculous amount, you know, she says she's never seen a pleading like this. It's 20 pages or more of exculpatory information and reasons why the government does not feel it a good idea to prosecute General Flynn in the interests of justice. But there are, you know, numerous arguments in there about materiality. And you don't, like, if you already know what was said on this call, you already know what General Flynn talked about with his counterpart on the phone call, you don't need him to talk to you unless you're trying to get him into some kind of a perjury trap, which they did. Even though the agents said over and over and over again, they didn't think that he was lying about not remembering exactly what he said. You don't use somebody's own words to goad them, as per Sally Yates. If the exact thing that she just said is contrary to materiality. You had I hope everybody understands what I'm trying to say. Like, it needs to be a material lie. Like, what you talked about needs to be material to the greater investigation for them to be able to charge you, you know, on material false statements. If they already had your entire transcript, there's no issue of materiality. It's just trying to, quote, as Priestip said, get him to lie so that we can get him fired, etc., so on and so forth. So that whole section there, to me, basically reiterates the Department of Justice's argument on materiality, even though she's trying to paint it the other way. We're going to go now to Lindsey Graham. It's going to be 13 first and then 14 Juan. Lindsey Graham actually does a really good job here of pinning this down about what General Flynn was doing during the transition. And it is so clear that Sally Yates has a huge axe to grind with General Flynn throughout this hearing. So here's 13.
You probably have seen reports starting yesterday, but then more of them this morning about contact between the incoming national security advisor and the Russian ambassador. I'm just wondering, from the State Department's point of view, is this something that's of concern at all, or I'll just leave it there and then follow up?
Again, not necessarily. I've seen the reports. I don't think they've been confirmed or corroborated yet. But you know, that's as he's part of the transition team, that's really for them to speak to and how they are engaging. I mean, the president-elect is also engaged on his own with many world leaders. So I don't want to speculate, and I don't want to.
No, there's nothing. This building doesn't see anything necessarily, inappropriate about contact between members of the incoming administration and foreign officials, no matter what country they're from.
No.
Right?
No. And again, this has been ongoing. I mean, we stand ready if they want to work through the State Department to contact some of these individuals, but we have no, no comment or no problem with them doing such on their own.
That was Obama's State Department spokesperson telling a reporter January 13th, 2017, that the State Department has no problem with anyone from the transition talking to foreign leaders. Not only that, but they will help orchestrate it if they want. Now let's listen to Lindsey Graham take her to task on this on clip 14.
She has said before, they're following a counterintelligence threat.
Which was closed on January the 4th.
And
Senator, I'm sorry, that's just not accurate. It was not closed on January.
recommended to be closed on January the 4th, the day before the meeting. And the only problem here is that you didn't like Flynn changing the policy or talking about changing the policy. That he had every right to do that. And what we're doing here is we're criminalizing policy differences. That's why Flynn got prosecuted, because they hate his guts.
It was policy differences, and there's a lot more to it than just what he just said there. But what they're basically doing here is saying that the transition team is not allowed to talk to any other foreign government in the transition. It is absolute insanity. Absolute insanity. And, you know, there's a lot more here. I'm going to skip down quickly, Juan. Get ready on 23. And we're going to talk about the FISA warrants on Carter Page. One of the common sort of misnomers throughout this is that because Carter Page had left, there's a thunderstorm outside. Do you hear that?
I did.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So if you lose me, that's why. One of the big things they were talking about is that Carter Page was not on the Trump campaign anymore when they got the FISA warrants on him. And Ted Cruz kind of talks to Yates about this, one of the best lines of questioning of the day, where he says to her, you know, listen, the Trump campaign, how long were you surveilling the Trump campaign? And Sally Yates responds and says, I wasn't surveilling. We didn't surveil the Trump campaign. Carter Page wasn't on the campaign anymore. Nonsense. We're going to go through that in a second. But I find it interesting, too, that Sally Yates is very, very detailed in her response to Lindsey Graham when she says, that's just not accurate. We didn't close it on the 4th. Why are we not seeing close it, meaning close the counterintelligence investigation into General Flynn? Well, it was supposed to be closed, but they never did it for some reason. But why are not these GOP senators jumping up and down about her not being accurate on the transcripts or the Carter Page issue she's about to talk about? These people pretend as though FISA warrants are not retroactive. Let's talk about clip 23. Let's listen.
When did you first become aware that the Obama administration was surveilling the Donald Trump campaign?
The Obama administration was not surveilling the Donald Trump campaign.
So a FISA application is not surveillance?
The FISA application was for Carter Page, who was a former member of the Trump campaign at that point.
So your testimony is that the investigation in Carter Page had nothing to do with the Donald Trump campaign?
No, I'm suggesting you asked me if we were surveilling the campaign.
You don't get it both ways. Is it the campaign or not?
Senator, I'm trying to give you what is the accurate information here. Carter Page was a former member of the Trump campaign at the time that the FISA was initiated.
And what was the reason for the FISA on Carter Page?
There were a number of reasons. First, we had gotten the information that I was trying to point out here, that the Russians had made the overture that they wanted to be able to assist the Trump campaign.
Now, hold on, you said it had nothing to do with the Trump campaign.
I said that he was not a member of the Trump campaign at the time that we initiated the FISA.
Ms. Yates, in your time at the Department of Justice, are you aware of any other political opponents of President Obama that were being surveilled?
So look, she contradicted herself there. And Ted Cruz, to be fair, while that question was really great, if I were asking her that question, I would have immediately, these guys know this. This is why this whole thing is a big show, okay? Hearings are a big show. They know that they're retroactive. They know that they're too hop. They know this about FISA warrants. It's why it should be so hard to get one. It's why that there's a secret court that's dedicated to just specifically this. He wasn't on the campaign, but we needed information about the campaign. Sally Yates throughout this really does a good job of quoting the IG Horowitz on the Carter Page FISA. Now remember, Sally Yates signed 2 of these FISA warrants. She signed the first one in October, and she signed the renewal in January, right before they interviewed the primary subsource. Thanks to our good friend on Twitter, John W. Huber, Undercover Huber, we have the IG report that she references throughout on page 367 that says the FBI gathered substantial evidence of Page's past electronic communications. The FISA warrant allows them to go retroactive as far back as they want and 2 hops away. It's just the way it works. Sally Yates is a liar. She's lying to everybody. It doesn't matter if he was on the campaign or not. It still allowed them to spy on the campaign because Carter Page was talking to Sam Clovis, who was a high-level campaign staffer. And goodness knows that Sam Clovis talked to Jeff Sessions, etc., so on and so forth, down the road. So any 2 hops away, they got. So that's just obfuscating the truth. The American people should know that. These senators should push back against it. Everybody who hears about this warrant should know that. Everyone. We're going to listen to one more clip from this exchange where Lindsey Graham kind of butts in for a second. Clip number 23 about Papadopoulos. Oh, is it 24?
When did
23 or 24?
I think it's 24. I think I played 23 already.
Yes, I thought you did.
My bad. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. I'm sorry. It takes this old computer to load up.
No, it's all right. I mean, it is what it is.
I don't mean to interrupt, but wasn't Papadopoulos also being taped?
Ms. Yates, the chairman asked a good question.
My understanding, I was not aware at the time, but my understanding is that Papadopoulos, that there was a recorded conversation between Papadopoulos and a source, not wiretap surveillance.
No, but
there
the
was
government orchestrated this, right?
That's what I know now. Didn't know that at the time. Yes.
So we know that the government orchestrated a recording of conversations with Papadopoulos and got a warrant against Carter Page. That seems to me surveillance.
So when they came to you asking to surveil members of the Trump campaign because of conduct they allegedly did while members of the Trump campaign, what due diligence did you do? Did you press back at all? You already told Senator Kennedy you just trusted the FBI. You didn't ask about their sources. You did. I mean, what due diligence did you do before signing off on what we now have significant reason to believe was a profound politicization of law enforcement and intelligence?
Senator, there was a tremendous amount of process back and forth between the lawyers and the
You could
National
stop at
Security
one.
Division and the.
So if I were Senator Ted Cruz, thank you, Juan. If I were Senator Ted Cruz, I would have stopped her and asked about Papadopoulos because she makes it out as though it's just some random guy walking by with a tape recorder. That is not the case. The FBI sent 2 separate sources to record Papadopoulos and try and get him to admit something that didn't exist. Stefan Halper and his friend from college or high school. And we got the transcripts of all of that. And when he talks about this stuff in the transcripts, he's very clear. It's very clear that he has nothing to do with Russia. In this same hearing, by the way, Sally Yates accuses George Papadopoulos of being a Russian, tied to Russian intelligence. I mean, she literally slanders him and says he was Russian intelligence. And it makes you wonder, do these people actually believe the stuff that they're talking about? Or what is the I mean, how can you sit there and lie with such impunity? We're going to talk about clip 19, Juan, if you can fire it up and get it ready. Clip 19, it's about sanctions. And I'm going to read to you the exact part of the transcript. She lies about this again. It must be pretty important. This is a tweet that Joel Pollack put together. But go ahead, let's play 19.
Counterintelligence concern about the conversations to begin with, given the fact that he was undercutting sanctions against the Russians for interfering in our election.
Is it a counterintelligence problem if the Russians Does it raise the prospect that General Flynn had lied to the vice president and that the Russian ambassador would know that and be able to exert leverage on the national security advisor?
Exactly, Senator. And I say, you layer on top of that he has been
There's a
lying to the
larger
vice
policy question around it, but there's a very specific issue right there, correct?
That's correct.
And it gives the Russians leverage against Mr. Flynn, possibly. General Flynn.
That was our concern, is that
That's the counterintelligence concern.
Potential conflicts.
No. So the Svetlana Lakova thing isn't a concern anymore because they debunked that apparently. Somebody posted this on Twitter for me. All of the other things that they were investigating General Flynn for, in quotes, they weren't blackmail worthy. But this was a conversation with the diplomat about the fact that the Obama administration was purposefully being antagonistic to Russia on purpose as they left the door. They didn't do. She's asked in this hearing, did you guys know that they were trying to meddle in the election before the election? She says, yes, we did. What'd you do? Well, did you do sanctions? We didn't want to look political. So this is what General Flynn says on the call. It says, so depending on what actions they take over this current issue of cyber stuff, where they are looking like they're going to dismiss some number of Russians out of the country, I understand all that, and I understand the information that they have and all that, but I ask Russia to do is not, if anything, I know you have to have some sort of action to only make it reciprocal. Don't go any further than you have to, because I don't want us to get into something that has to escalate tit for tat. Do you follow me? In other words, the expelling of the Russians, not the sanctions placed on the Russians. They never talked about sanctions. Therefore, when General Flynn spoke to Vice President Pence and was asked whether he talked about sanctions, and he said no, he was telling the truth. Therefore, every single argument that Sally Yates or anyone else on this planet makes about General Flynn lying to Vice President Pence, to FBI, to anyone about talking about sanctions is completely wrong. We have the transcripts right in front of us. He does not address sanctions. He does not address them. He told the truth about that. That is why Vice President Pence has now said that he doesn't believe he was being lied to. That's why. Now, 21 Juan in a second. She says a few times in here how great IG Horowitz is, you know, how great he is, and how he did such a great job, and, you know, he was so above board. And by the way, he didn't find any evidence of bias at all in the decision to do this FISA warrant against Carter Page, and all the mistakes that there were, the 17 errors and omissions, which Sally Yates finds the need to call 7 and correct. She's very detail orientated until she's not. Let's play clip 21.
But I also trust Inspector General Horowitz's conclusion that he did not find any evidence that any of these agents were acting with bias or any kind of political motive. You know, when I looked and read the Horowitz report to try to figure out, even though I was no longer in office anymore, what went wrong, what you seem to have are agents who superimposed and used their own judgment for what was material or what was exculpatory.
That's not an acceptable answer. And as a matter of fact, when pressed in testimony in front of Congress, which these people never refer to, because why would they? Horowitz was pressed and he said he thinks it's fair, quote, for people to sit there and look at all of these 17 events and wonder how it could be purely incompetence. You know, a lot of people rightly criticized IG Horowitz in both the Hillary Clinton email investigation, the MYE IG investigation, as well as this one, for concluding a few different things the way they concluded them, including about bias. And the way that they write these things is very specific, but it doesn't matter to the people on the left who care nothing about facts and data and only care about a narrative that they're trying to push. So the fact that she's running with this no bias thing when we've got IG Horowitz on the record several times outside of the one that I just read to you, stating that he can't rule out bias because it is clearly way too much for just incompetence. Somebody needs to push back on this. Somebody needs to push back on it. And another issue I wanted to talk about real quick in the closing moments here. There were a few more clips I wanted to get to, but we may not get to them today. And Juan is going to tell me I need more than an hour, and it's not true. It's not. It's just that I have a lot of material today.
You need more than an hour. I just
know,
wanted to drop that there.
That's so funny. So there were two different reports that came out. There was one from the HPSC, or the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, that talked about Russian interference in the election and all of this nonsense. And there was one from the Senate. And the Senate report was completely political and ridiculous. It concluded that the Russians interfered in the election to assist President Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton. And if you look at the evidence in the case, that's just not true. Let's just take for a second and put aside the $100,000 that the Russians spent on social media ads for the campaign, or for the election. Out of that, they spent just as much money on anti-Trump ads as they did on pro-Hillary, anti-Hillary ads. Not only that, but Michael Moore went to a protest that was sort of sprung up by one of these, quote, Russian troll farms. So it was an anti-Trump protest. So this is the problem. Now, Sally Yates relied on this Senate report several times in her testimony, whereas the House report is not so friendly and nobody brings it up. And the Senate as a whole has corrupt members all over the place. Quickly, Marco Rubio, who gave Mark Warner a pass about talking to Waldman and Deripaska and Christopher Steele behind the scenes. They're all a bunch of swamp rats. And the only good one in there, I would say Ron Johnson's great. Senator Grassley is great. But outside of those two, Graham did an okay job. But this hearing as a whole, and again, I might do a supplemental video to this because I've got about 10 more that I found. This hearing as a whole was an abomination of everything. Like, it was so... When you have got a case right now ongoing where the Department of Justice is looking to drop charges against an innocent man, and you have people lying with impunity about that case on the record throughout a 3-hour-long hearing with no pushback whatsoever, it's just not a good look. It really isn't. And with all the reporting about AG Barr almost being done, or Durham almost being done with his investigation, now is the time to start getting some truth out there for the American people. Thankfully, the judges in the on-bank panel that are going to rehear this writ of mandamus that General Flynn brought up are looking to see if the Judge Sullivan, should even be on the case anymore due to him making himself a party to it, etc., so on and so forth. But can we throw the guy a bone and at least push back on the blatant falsity? I mean, one, did you understand what I did today, or was I too quick for most people? I'm not sure.
No, I understood it. Actually, I was going to call you the Sarina of knowledge of corruption in D.C. And we are your subjects. And
my God.
And you have taught us a lot today.
Well, I hope so, because I know I kind of rapid fired through it. And if you're not familiar with the story, you might not have gotten everything. But I hope you can send this to your friends and, show them why it is that we need senators and staffers that understand what the heck is going on in these cases. If the American people understand it better than their elected representatives, we have a big problem in this country. Big problem. And that's all I got for you today. So you can hear us every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock on YouTube, on Twitter, on CloutHub, on, D Live, Facebook, your website. Juan, plug your own website.
RightAmericanMedia.com.
There we go. And again, every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock. And then don't forget to listen to the podcast and go to UncoverDC.com. The podcast is Dark to Light with Frank and Beans, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2:30 Eastern Time on every podcasting platform. And that's it. I'm done. I'm spent. The music should start playing in a minute.
You should. You should.
It should. Where's that music? I accidentally put it in the wrong stuff.
No.
I'm not.
The computer's not firing, so that's why.
It's okay.
But
It's
anyway,
okay.
it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
We'll see you on Tuesday.
Capitol Hill before a Republican-led Senate committee. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf says,
For over 60 days, federal properties in Portland, particularly the Hatfield Federal Courthouse,